Hey everyone, I'm Jamie Roberts at Equilibrium Counseling Services, and I'm joined today by Jessica Rodriguez, one of our therapists on staff here, because she just wrote our August blog. So, Jessica, you want to introduce yourself and let us know what this month's topic is?
Hi, I'm Jessica. I've been with Equilibrium for a year and 6 months now. I wrote our blog for this month on mental health and the stigma around it.
Yes. And so, what about the stigma? Are we breaking the stigma? Are we talking about the stigma? Are we challenging it? What's this about?
A little bit of everything inside the blog for sure. Um, we're talking about mental health is more of like where it's going. We're talking about it, and we're definitely trying to break that stigma and challenging the stigma.
Mhm. So, what is the stigma right now that you're seeing about mental health?
It's a lot of the what are you sad about? What do you have anxiety about? You have everything you need. Just suck it up and you'll be fine. It's a lot of those not so nice things to say about something that someone is going through.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of what I've been noticing.
And I think sometimes we can say that to ourselves. Like, absolutely, people
Definitely.
say that to us when we're struggling, but I think a lot of that is our internal conversation, uh,
Right.
when we're struggling.
Definitely. And I feel like a lot of that could come also from like how we grew up and like what other people in our household think of mental health or like going to therapy or anything like that. Um, because obviously a lot of that kind of trickles into what we end up thinking as
Mhm,
adults or even, growing up.
mhm. And then what do you think is kind of the damage or the struggle when that stigma is present?
I think the damage is the fact that people are afraid to speak up. I think it's when that stigma is around, when people think that it's not okay to struggle with mental health or that mental health isn't a real thing.
Mhm,
Um, the not opening up, the not bringing it up, the not looking for help
mhm,
is huge.
mhm. So then it sounds like people stay isolated or stay
Mhm.
struggling on their own, which, we know that having a support system is one of like the strongest ways to find healing or growth or be able to not hold that burden on your own.
Right.
Hmm.
It's definitely one of those things. Actually wrote in the blog. There's a few tips in there, but that's definitely one of them that I wrote in there. Um, Obviously working towards self-acceptance and self-love, but like also having that support system and having somebody to talk to. And even if it's talking to them and then them being like, hey, like maybe you can go talk to somebody else about it or anything like that. But having that support system is huge.
And what I really liked about what you wrote was bringing in some of like those facts and those numbers.
Mhm.
It really normalizes it about how many of us face this, that you're not alone, that there are other people who go through it. And so I really liked that you brought in some of those numbers, to really know how widespread it is.
Right. Yeah. Some of the numbers that I brought up in there, like when you start feeling those symptoms and then when you start getting the treatment or any sort of help, it's like 11 years gap.
Wow.
And
And
that's
people are
a
experiencing
lot.
mental health difficulties for 11 years before they actually get some of that support from a
Right.
professional. That's a long time.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's
So,
unfortunate.
what are some ways that, I mean, obviously, we work in mental health, and so we talk about it all the time, which I think creates this bubble, right? Everybody I know and talk to is aware of mental health,
Right.
which isn't the case in a lot of communities or situations. So, what are some ways that, I mean, somebody who's watching this video is obviously going to be having some interest in the mental health work, whether it's for themselves or for a family member. So, what are things that we can do to kind of spread some of that knowledge or awareness?
I think one of the biggest things, and I wrote this in the blog as well, is educating ourselves and others.
Mm,
It is okay with admitting and like, saying, okay, no, I don't know anything about mental health. Like, no, I don't know what I'm going through. But like educating yourself, reading about the topic, becoming more knowledgeable, and then helping those around
mm,
like us and those around other people like understand what mental health is and like the truth about it as opposed to like the misconceptions about it
mm.
because there's a lot of misconceptions about mental health that it like also come in our scene.
I read a quote that was, I heal loudly so others don't suffer in silence. So some of that, like modeling some of the behaviors, or modeling like I go to therapy and this is how it helps me, or this is how mental health shows up, and just naming it allows somebody who may be struggling in private to know that someone else has it, or oh, that's the name of it, or that's what it's called.
Right. And I do like the fact that, like, the stigma is starting to not necessarily break, but it's starting to get challenged, kind of like we said earlier. And a lot of like celebrities or athletes are starting to talk about their mental health, which, like, obviously those people are people that teens and kids look up to, even adults look up to. And like when they're like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Hey, it's a normal, like if you're feeling these things, like you can talk about them as well. Like that also definitely helps because then they can feel empowered to do so and to be like, okay, like this person that I'm looking up to is also struggling. So I can go and get the help because they're also getting help.
Absolutely. That's always great when you have a role model
Right.
who also speaks up about it. So
Mhm.
why this topic? Why did you choose this? Why was this significant or important for you?
This has always been significant and important to me. I guess like once I actually came to the conclusion that I was going to become a therapist, just because like I will say my mom and my brothers super supportive, always been supportive, but not the rest of my family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even now that I am a therapist, like, no, Jessica, like, they brush it off. No, that's not a thing. What do you even do in therapy? You sit there and talk to somebody. And it's like, no, there's so many other things. And I'm like, so I kind of like grew up with part of that stigma. And it wasn't necessarily that like I was afraid to talk about mental health, but it was just like I was so surrounded by it that it's always been something that I'm like, I really want to break some of that stigma. I really want to like show people that like, no, mental health is real. It's just as important as physical health. That's like you as a whole. You have to take care of your whole body, and that includes mentally and emotionally. So that's where I got that like want and need to like be more open about the stigma and breaking it.
So you've for years been kind of facing that in your own life to educate and break the stigma and make it okay. And so here now, even on a larger scale, continuing that mission of it's the whole body, right? Your brain controls everything, your mentality is life. And so making sure we're doing that care as well is significant.
Right.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Well, I super enjoyed reading your article. I love working with you, but also like following all of your stuff. So if anyone is interested, this is a really great article to kind of start learning about mental health, or asking those questions, or kind of seeking a little bit more of that awareness, or to share with people in your life. And you can find it on our website, equilibriumcs.com. I'm going to link it on all of our accounts and stuff. Jessica is seeing new clients. She has space and availability. So if you would like to book a session, please reach out to us. But yeah, thank you, Jessica, for everything you're doing. And yeah,
Thank you. This was
cool.
great.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.